Good evening, members and officers and members of the public. If you have mobile devices, if you would please put them on silent or turn them off. And if the fire alarm sounds, it will not be a drill, it will be the real thing. So please leave the building via the marked exits, the green and white signs. This committee meeting is being live streamed. It is also being recorded. The link to the live stream can be found on the Council's website, www.tenderingdc.gov.uk/live meetings. For the purpose of the recording, I will introduce everyone. I'm Councillor Maria Fowler, Chairman of the Planning Committee. I will introduce the members of the committee separately. Councillor Maurice Alexander.
Good evening, Chairman.
Councillor Bernard Goldman.
Good evening, Chair.
Councillor Geeta Sudra.
Good evening, Chair.
And our Vice Chairman, Councillor John White.
Good evening, Chairman.
Thank you, members. The Council officers assisting the committee this evening are from Committee Services, Bethany Jones and Katie Coppenall. From Planning Services, Alison Newland and Charlotte Cooper. Planning Manager, John Pateman G. Corporate Director of Planning and Community, Gary Guyver, and our Planning Solicitor, Joanne Fisher. There are no changes to the running order. The application will be presented by the officer, followed by public speaking, in the order of the applicant or agent, any members of the public who have already asked to speak for or against the application, a speaker from the town or parish council, and finally, the ward councillor. Members of the committee will then have a chance to question the officer, and once all the questions have been answered, the committee will then debate. When the points have been discussed, finally, I shall ask if we have a resolution and then call for a proposer and seconder, and the committee will then vote according to the normal rules. Item 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence and substitutions, please, Bethany.
Thank you, Chair. I have received apologies from Councillors Bray, Codlin and Wiggins with no substitutions.
Thank you, Bethany. Item 2, the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on Tuesday, the 17th of March. If those of you who were present have had a look at those minutes, we can accept those as a correct record. Could I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Seconded, Councillor Goldman. And could we have a show of hands for acceptance? Item 3, declarations of interest. Councillor Alexander, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare an interest. Agenda item 2.6 to below 2.5 full. I wish to speak at the time, and I will then retire from the chambers for the freedom of debate.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chairman. Declarations of interest on agenda item number 6, 2501-795/4 on the ward councillor for Great Bromley. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. And also for the matter of public record, the members of the Planning Committee have received an email regarding the item 5 on the agenda, which is A125011066, the land to the south of Wheelie Road, Great Bentley. We have received a lobbying email with some photographs which will not be part of our considerations. Declaration of interest. Councillor Griffiths.
Chairman, I wish to declare an interest on item 8, which is your report on the former public convenience stroke beach patrol shelter. This is within my ward and I expect to speak on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Are there any further declarations of interest? No? Okay, thank you very much. Item 5 on the agenda is our first application this evening, which is A125/01066/out, land to the south of Wheatley Road, Great Bentley. And to present this item for us this evening, our officer Alison Newland. Over to you, Alison.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This application is before committee because it's a departure from the local plan proposing housing outside the settlement development boundary. It's also been called in on the grounds of archaeology, flood risk, railway line safety and overdevelopment of the village. So the application is proposing up to 80 dwellings with all matters reserved except for access, which is what you're considering today. So this is the application site. This plan at the side shows you where the settlement development boundary lies, which is roughly around this edge of the site, and this also shows you the flood zones which run along the north and down this boundary of the site. You've got the railway line at the bottom, Wheatley Brook up the side boundary here, and this is the phase 1 development called Hertford Green, and that's for 154 dwellings. That's almost completed now, and the site's also a potential allocation for 80 dwellings in the emerging local plan. So you can see on the phase 1 plan, the site already includes the attenuation basin and this attenuation drainage feature for phase 1. They're unaffected by this proposal, which has got its own drainage features. Here's an aerial view. You can see the site's been used as the construction compound for phase 1. There's a temporary vehicle access here onto Wheatley Road. You've got the public right-of-way here, which runs opposite the site, and then the Grade 2 Eden's farmhouse is over here. Vehicular access was originally proposed around where the temporary construction access is, but Highways objected to that, so it's been relocated at around this point into phase 1. So all the vehicular traffic from this site would come out the site here and up round through phase 1 onto Wheatley Road at the top there. That's been subject to full reconsultation, which has now expired. These show you some views of the site. So this is from the front, from the top northern end of the site, Wheatley Road, looking across. You can see phase 1 being built over here in the construction compound just off to the side. And the lower picture is from the public right-of-way. So Wheatley Road runs at the other side of this hedge boundary at the bottom. This is a view from inside the site with you back to the Wheatley Brook boundary looking towards phase 1. And you can see all this dense vegetation along the railway line boundary to the bottom. And then this is looking in the opposite direction. So Wheatley Brook runs along here. And then you've got a field which will be left undeveloped, and then the listed building is off in the distance in this location. They've submitted a landscape and visual impact assessment which confirms the landscape harm will be mainly low and moderate at worst. Landscaping will be secured at reserved matters stage, and a 12-metre landscape buffer is indicated to this eastern boundary here, which would also provide screening to the listed building. So this view shows you the listed building, which you can just see its chimney here in the background behind these outbuildings at the front. So it's a Grade 2 listed building. It's around 255 metres to the east of the site. And standing on the site, you can just see the chimney there in the distance behind the hedgerow. So the application site was historically in the same ownership as the farmhouse, and it positively contributes to its setting, revealing how it was part of an isolated farmstead. The proposal would result in a low level of less than substantial harm to the significance and setting of the farmhouse, which must be weighed against the public benefits. Paragraph 7.44 of the report lists those public benefits which are considered to outweigh this harm, and there isn't an objection on heritage grounds. This shows you the existing access into phase 1, where all the vehicular traffic from this site would come out. You can see it's a 20-mile-an-hour zone now on the photos. And this is a photograph from within phase 1. So looking at the local area of play here behind the fence, the little play area, and then this wider area of open space. And then vehicular access would be down Marvin Way here. And this is the outer edge of phase 1 that you can see here. And I think members went through here on the site visit through the part that's currently not got public access. So, as I said, access is all we're considering at the moment. So the vehicular point of access would be here into phase 1, and you've also got 2 pedestrian points of access, which are here into phase 1, and then here to link to the public right-of-way opposite, and that preserves this link which was approved under the phase 1 development, so that residents of phase 1 would have access to the public right-of-way. So that's generally preserved in this application. Appearance, landscape and layout and scale are reserved, so this is just indicating how the site could be laid out. So there's significantly above the 10% public open space proposed, which is up at the north and the south. You've got a new attenuation basin here to meet the needs of this proposal, and a wide landscape buffer around this outer edge of the site. So it's for up to 80 dwellings with 30% affordable housing. That's a low density of 14.5 dwellings per hectare, so a detailed layout could easily avoid areas within the flood zone and provide adequate separation, gardens and parking. So access is included. This is your detailed access plan, which would come out in this point into phase 1. It does mean that there's 3 parking spaces here in the approved phase 1, which will need to be relocated. The Highway Authority is satisfied with the proposed access and that there's sufficient capacity for the proposal subject to conditions. There's also up to £100,000 secured in the Section 106 for the new bus services, which have run between Great Bentley, Brightlingsea, Clacton and Old Colchester. So looking at the impact on the phase 1 development as the nearest residential neighbours, none of these properties are occupied currently, but these at the top are. There will be some loss to their outlook, which is obviously currently over agricultural land, but that, given the low density of the proposal, we're satisfied that we'll be able to approve an acceptable layout of reserved matters for landscaping and layout to overcome any harms to residential amenity. You'll also have the increased comings and goings of the vehicular traffic in this direction up to the phase 1 entrance, but again, as this is 154 dwellings in the phase 1 approval, that wouldn't be result in significant harm to those existing properties that are along that access route. You've also got a pedestrian access route here, which was approved in phase 1 onto Birch Avenue, so pedestrian footfall would typically go in that direction. There are conditions in a legal agreement on phase 1 to secure the Suds Basin and footpath in perpetuity. So this is the footpath that goes along to join to the public right-of-way. The Suds Basin is unaffected, as the new proposal has its own Suds Basin, but the approved footpath will change and it will need a subsequent amendment to the phase 1 permission and legal agreement if the proposal goes ahead, and it would also be secured under layout for the current proposal. That's detailed a bit on your update sheet. You'll also see comments from both the parish and the Education Authority about the pedestrian access down to the primary school, which is here, and the train station is here. So, as I said, there's a pedestrian link here from phase 1, so they can go through that route down to the school and the train station. It's 0.65 miles from the edge of this application site, so it's well within the 2-mile statutory walking distance in the ECC guide for primary school children. Education have requested a primary school transport contribution because it's not considered walkable, and that relates to this final section of Newcut here, which doesn't have a full footpath. So at the Tesco end there's a footpath, but the rest of that small route doesn't have a footpath. It's about 68 metres long in total. But that's obviously the current situation for local residents all coming from that side of the village towards the school and the train station. So we don't consider that the transport contribution request is justified. In terms of Section 106, That's detailed at paragraph 9.2 of your report. It secures 30% affordable housing and contributions for the NHS, early years and childcare, secondary school transport, libraries, RAMS, bus service contributions, BNG monitoring fee, on-site open space and its maintenance, and also village hall improvements, which was something that was requested by the parish council in lieu of a play area on the site, because there's already a play area on the phase 1 development very close, and good quality play space within the main village green. So it was felt that a village hall contribution would be a better option. The only consultee objection is from Anglia Water in relation to the connection to the foul sewer. The applicant is in discussions with them, and that's covered by condition 14 in the report. So Great Bentley is identified as a rural service centre which reflects its relative level of services, facilities and employment opportunities. As our housing policies are now out of date, the tilted balance is engaged. So planning permission should be granted unless the adverse impacts of granting planning permission would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against the framework as a whole. As I mentioned earlier, the site is included as a draft allocation in the local plan for 80 dwellings. That's got very limited weight at the moment because we're at such an early stage of the plan, but it indicates our direction of seeing this as a good location for future plan making. So when we're considering the tilted balance, we need to look at whether the site's sustainable, which is in relation to the economic, social and environmental role. So economically, there'd be short-term economic benefits through construction activity and the longer-term benefits through the increased expenditure in the village. We've also got the £100,000 contribution towards the bus service. So these economic benefits attract moderate weight. There would be a permanent loss of grade 2 very good agricultural land, which represents an economic disbenefit. But as you can see from the phase 1 plan, the site is already dissected by the footpath and the SUDS features on the site, so that limits how easily it could be cultivated. It's therefore considered the economic benefits associated with up to 80 new dwellings would outweigh this loss of very good agricultural land. In terms of the social role, we've got up to 80 dwellings with 30% affordable housing and significantly above the policy requirement for open space. There's improvements to the village hall, libraries and local bus service provision, which are significant social benefits. And the section 106 confirms it would mitigate its impacts upon education, healthcare and habitat sites. The site's considered to be within reasonable walking distance of the facilities within the town centre, the village centre. And we've also got the new bus service contribution, which would increase the accessibility for the services which are in Clacton and Brightlingsea for residents that live here. Given the significant housing shortfall and the sustainable location with good access to services and public transport, the social benefits are considered to carry substantial weight. In terms of the environmental impact, the development will extend into the countryside and it results in some landscape impact and loss of very good agricultural land. However, the technical assessments confirm that impacts on landscape, highways, ecology, trees, drainage, archaeology, flood risk and amenity can be mitigated through design and or the planning conditions. Biodiversity net gain is demonstrated with mitigation to protect habitats and species. A low level less than substantial harm would result to the significance in setting of the grade 2 listed Eden's farmhouse. However, it would be outweighed by the public benefits of the proposal. Environmental effects are therefore limited and capable of being satisfactorily managed and mitigated. So when assessed against the framework as a whole, the adverse impacts, principally the landscape impact and the less than substantial harm to the setting of the listed building, do not significantly or demonstrably outweigh the benefits of the proposal. So the proposal is acceptable under the presumption in favour of sustainable development. If I could just draw your attention to the update sheet, there's some additional parish comments, minor changes to condition wording and an additional informative to clarify that position with the footpath that crosses the site. The recommendation is approval subject to those updates and completion of the section 106. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. And on our list of speakers for this item, the first speaker is Mr. Stuart Blakely, Head of Planning, Taylor Wimpey, the applicant's representative. Mr. Blakely, if you'd like to take a seat, and when you're ready, if you push the button, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to address you regarding the proposed development of land south of Wheelie Road, Great Bentley. I'm Stuart Blakely, Head of Planning at Telewimpey. Members will be aware that the Council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. The tilted balance of granting planning permission therefore applies. We have not sought to rely on this national policy. Instead, we have addressed any potential harms and maximised all benefits. We consider this scheme would merit approval, even if the tilted balance was not applied. While the Council has taken positive steps to deliver housing, the district faces acute housing pressures with over 2,000 households now on the housing register. This proposal would make a meaningful contribution to market and affordable need. There will be economic benefits through construction and the local supply chain, followed by spend supporting local services and businesses. The scheme will deliver ecological enhancements, biodiversity net gain, and public open space in excess of the minimum requirements. Other benefits mentioned already include contributions towards village hall improvements, library services, and a new bus service. The site adjoins the Hartford Green development that is being constructed by Telewimpey. This proposal represents a logical extension to this permission on land that is approved for use as the construction compound for the first phase. The 2 phases will ultimately be read as a single extension to Great Bentley that sits away from the historic core of this village. The site is proposed for allocation in the draft local plan. While the final local plan is yet to be determined, this nevertheless reflects that the site has been assessed as sustainable and deliverable for homes. In line with Essex County Council Highway Authority, we have revised the access from Wheelie Road to through Hartford Green. All other technical matters can be dealt with by condition, including a condition requiring a foul water strategy to be agreed prior to commencement of development, which will give the Council and Anglian Water complete assurance this matter will be fully addressed. We also welcome the Parish Council's addendum comments this evening. We therefore respectfully request members approve the application before them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blakely. And now the next speaker is a member of the public speaking against the application, Mr. Chris Morris. Mr. Morris, if you're here, if you'd like to take a seat, thank you. Good evening, and from when you push the button, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My wife and I have lived in Great Bentley for over 40 years and have, particularly in the last 10 years, seen the expanding parking problem. The current population is around 3,500 to 4,000 people, and with the primary school, the railway station, doctors, the several shops, industrial area situated around the village centre, parking is now a major concern. This is certainly evident at school arrival and departure times, as shown on the photographs we circulated to the committee members, the officers and highways. Our main concern with this application, together with similar applications being considered, is the increase in the number of cars that will undoubtedly lead to particularly on school runs. There is a small car park at the railway station, and the Village Hall Committee allow cars to park in their car park at school times. Both are already at full capacity, leading to cars being parked wherever they can, e.g. Station Road, The Cut or Birch Avenue. In turn, congestion builds up as the traffic is unable to drive along Plough Road due to parked cars. Again, this is illustrated in the photographs. In the Highways response dated the 17th of October 2025, a comment was made that the further point of the site would far exceed 800 metres walking distance to the school. This has not been mentioned in their comments dated the 23rd of March 2026. No reason is given, but the fact remains. On the submitted indicative site plan, houses in the furthest most northeast corner of the site will be approximately 3/4 of a mile or 1,250 metres from the school, and people with young children will undoubtedly drive into the village, exacerbating the parking problem. Similarly, people will drive to the doctor's surgery. This was the main reason that 735 residents signed a petition objecting. We appreciate that we are to have more housing, particularly considering the government's requirement for housing close to a mainline station. Most residents in Great Bentley would prefer no more housing, but as this is unavoidable, surely development should be encouraged on sites within a sensible walking distance. We realise that the highways no longer object to the application, but according to their development management policies, they aim to protect and maintain a reliable and safe highway infrastructure. Even now, Great Bentley does not have a safe highway infrastructure. Finally, please bear in mind that the child has already been hit by a car when leaving the primary school, and only recently a small toddler was clipped by a car trying to drive past the school. It is only a matter of time before a serious accident occurs, and we should do everything we can to reduce this happening. It's a shame that at...
Will you stop now, please? That's 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, the final speaker I have on my list is Councillor Amy Kettiger, but I don't believe she's here, is she? No, right, okay, so that's the last speaker for this item. I'm just going to check with the officer. Is there anything that the speakers have said that you'd like to come back on?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alison. Members, questions for the officer? Councillor White.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's to do with drainage. If I've got it right from what Alison's just told us, the drainage for phase 1 is actually on phase 2, but phase 2 is also going to have its own drainage at the bottom of the scheme. Have I got it correctly? So stage 1 feeds across stage 2, and then stage 2's got its own in as well.
Yes, that's correct. So the stage 1, these two features here, and this is completely separate. All the drainage from the proposed development will go to a completely new basin that's nothing to do with the stage 1 drainage.
Right. Well, when we were on site yesterday, we saw the sunken area within stage 2, and it was explained that that is to take water from stage 1. So we've got a double whip out of this. Right, thank you for that one. Could I have a second one? I know we're only discussing access at this point, but the play area for phase 2 is actually, well, the play area for stage 2 is actually on stage 1. And later on, I'd like permission just to query whether we can do that. After all, the play area has been already approved, and I think we might come up with some suggestions to improve it as it is the stage 2 play area as well. Have I got that correct?
So when the application was originally submitted, we did have a proposed play area in the north, and yeah, the parish requested that because we've got this play area here within phase 1, that it wasn't really required, so we have favoured the village hall contribution instead. The phase 1 development isn't actually within the same application site currently, if I get my site plan. So we can't impose conditions on this area if that's what you're asking under this application.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Sudra.
Thank you, Chair. Alison, I just need clarity. So the access road was just part of phase 1, but when phase 2 came to planning, highways objected straight away. Is that right in thinking?
So they're completely separate. The application site before you hasn't been considered before, but when it was submitted, the point of access was here originally, which we had concerns with, and highways objected to. So we asked them to move it to within phase 1, And that will mean that we won't need a break in the hedgerow along here, and once the construction compound is finished with, that will be able to be closed.
That's great, thank you. And just one more question. With the bus service, will it come into the development, or will it just bypass on the main road?
So it won't come into the development, no. This is the new bus service that they introduced, I think it's in February, that goes from Brightlingsea goes via Great Bentley via the train station and out to Clacton. So it's additional funding for that, so that's only temporarily funded for 2 years. So it doesn't directly come to the site, no, but they can pick it up at the train station.
Okay, that's great, thank you. But there's no future plan for bus stops within the planning?
No, it hasn't been requested from Highways for any bus stops within the development.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sudra. Before we carry on with any questions, just an observation from me, really, again, how important it is that we do visit. I know not all local authorities do, the planning committees do visit sites, but we do visit them, and how important it was to see the setting of the Grade 2 listed building, which we could see on our way into the site. It's always important to see that, because you can't see that from photographs. You need to see it for yourself to realise how important that is. And I was quite happy with what I saw with that yesterday, with the setting of the listed building. So I didn't have a problem with that. Councillor Goldman.
Thank you, Chair. In respect of the extra traffic that will be coming through from that original road coming in, for the road that's then going onto the new site, there's a play area that backs onto that. So you can have excessive traffic coming through. The play area alone is a bit of a concern to me, because it's quite open. There's a field there that's open. I noticed when we was on the site visit. Is there any provision for that to be made a little bit safer from the road point of view, because it's just open, there's nothing there to stop kids running across or anything like that, you know, although the play area itself is enclosed, but the actual field is open.
So you can see in this photo, yeah, the play area is within that fenced area, but the open space around it is completely open, and that is how phase 1 has been approved, so there isn't any requirement to hedge that off at the moment. It's not in the application site of this application, so we can't impose any conditions on that land.
Well, can there be some sort of extra hedging put in there at all in any way, part of the biodiversity net gain or anything like that, to help with that?
So because it's outside the application site, we can't impose a condition on it, because they haven't told us under the application that they own or control it. So we can't condition it. I think it was indicated on site that they may potentially be happy to plant a hedge, but that would need to be an informal arrangement that we couldn't secure under this application.
Can it be made a formal arrangement with the contractors to actually do that, to at least make it a little bit safer? This is a bit of a concern for me, that's with those children playing, because it's quite a built-up area.
So the situation here is that we have made an approval, it is being built. We are past the point where we could retrospectively alter that design or any of the arrangements that have been approved by this authority. I believe the road is a 20-mile-an-hour road, but ultimately we cannot formally require any changes to this open space or impose security of those changes onto this development. This development is nothing apart from the route of access, but it's not anything else to do with the current application before you. It has to be treated separately. You are looking at this application on its merits only in that respect. If it's good or bad in terms of the existing arrangements regarding this open space, that is a past argument we can't go back to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldman. Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. Although I'm acutely aware that we're here tonight to look at the application before us, which was access as an outline, I'm also must say that leaving the area, the proposed area, and going out into the wilds of Bentley, we encountered huge amounts of parking, and it appears to be something of a problem. Now, I'm willing to take your guidance on this, as I don't wish to cross any borders here. But this is going to be a problem which is going to become exacerbated over the period of time and during the construction of these properties. And I'm not sure which authority would be responsible, but this is something I think should have been taken into consideration some time ago, and maybe it's already in the planning stages and we know nothing about it. But would you agree that that is a planning problem, a parking problem?
That is an existing problem in the centre of the village. You've obviously got the railway crossing as well, so that exacerbates it when the gates are down. But the development meets its requirements for on-site parking, and it's got the pedestrian link through to the village, so the phase 1 development was allowed on appeal, and the inspector considered those points, and in approving the Birch Avenue residential link through here, the inspector considered that made the facilities within the village accessible enough on foot or by cycle so that it was sustainable, so that it wouldn't be grounds for refusal. But as I say, obviously they've met their on-site requirements for parking. We've got a transport statement that Highways are satisfied that the capacity of the local roads can take the development, and that includes the proposal opposite the site, which is pending at the moment.
So the relevant authorities are satisfied with the parking arrangements, not only in the proposed site, but also in the village as well. That's fine. We're moving on. Again, thinking about contributions and what difference they can make, and thinking about the doctor's surgery. I asked this question at the site visit, and I think it should be brought up here. And that is the money that is being given. How will that affect the local people, and will that be kept in the village and that surgery expanded? Simply because from what I read, there is an inadequate amount of doctors to service such a high proportion of residents.
So paragraph 9.2 shows you the heads of terms for what we've secured in the legal agreement, which is just being finalised at the moment, and it's 46,800 for Great Bentley surgery or other solutions that address the increased capacity. So the NHS talk about, obviously, sometimes there's online things or different investments, but it is that's what is secured, the wording in the legal agreement, that it relates to Great Bentley surgery or other improvements that would increase capacity to that surgery.
Thank you, Charlie, for that for a moment.
So before we go into debate, are there any further questions for our officer? If not, I shall go back to Councillor White. And anything further that you wish to ask the officer? No? Okay, so we'll go to Councillor White. Thank you.
I think the point that I was raising, this stage 2, which I have to say I'm in favour of, but part of the stage 2 allows that no play area shall be built on it, because you can use the already approved play area adjacent to it. That makes a lot of sense. But however, we've heard from the planning manager that it has already been approved on stage 1, and therefore we couldn't make any suggestions on planting a safe hedge round it, although it is part of stage 2. Now, are we to early or too late. We are considering today just access to this land. It's not the final bit, but as Councillor Goldman has just raised, the that road now will become quite a busy road, and therefore to have a play area, a large grass area without any boundary, I think should have some form of hedging or fencing around it. Now, we understand that indeed the developer is willing to consider it. But again, with 2 points. A, can we do something for it, even on the grounds that it is the play area for stage 2? And B, do we need to do it now or when we get the final development plan for stage 2?
Okay, so in the order of things, the application you have before you is not just for access only. It is for the principle of development in this location, and it includes one of the reserved matters, which is access, which means that what is not included is the layout, appearance, landscaping and so on, but just access. But the primary issue here, being an outline application, is to decide the principle of development. And that principle, there are certain bits to that principle that you need to consider, which is what are the burdens of the development in the context of highways, because you know that this principle is up to 80 properties. It may not be 80, it could be less, it's unlikely, but it could be up to 80. And you need to understand what the highway implications of that are. You need to look at other principle considerations as well. Ultimately, in normal situations, we would say that a development of this size would generate X many children, and those children would need to find a place to enjoy as a public open space. As a general public open space, this exceeds the current requirements. Now, the other requirement is, do we need play equipment for those children to enjoy? Normally we'd expect something, but in this case, we've been the local parish council has says we've got local play spaces already available. The burden on those is not seen as needing further contribution, that they have the capacity to take on board this additional residential development, and so their request is to redirect that funding towards the village hall instead. If, however, your debate is that that funding should not go towards the village hall, that it should go towards an existing play space instead, the only caveat here is I don't know who controls that current play provision in phase 1. I'm not sure if that's a management company or controlled by the parish council. Is it management company? Right. So legally we might have to look at how that would be done, but effectively you know, you're saying, well, do we reduce the contribution to the village hall that would have been money towards play equipment and play items, and redirect it to an existing play area? I have no evidence of need for that play area to take on board funding, although I appreciate your concerns over safety in respect of the current position, but I also have no evidence of experts that tell me that it is unsafe to justify that either. So it's slightly more complicated than perhaps simply diverting money elsewhere to an existing location. It's in the realms of possibility, potentially, but I don't have robust need to justify it at the moment, and I would have to look at what is the need of the existing arrangement, and I don't have that before me as evidence or information. So would be a bit stuck in terms of defending that at this moment in time.
Thank you, Mr. Pateman G. Just a quick question from me. The reserve matters application, would that come back to committee?
Possibly not,
But-
unless
but
there's a specific request. That
If
members
we
wish to
if
make.
we were minded to request it comes back to committee, yeah, okay, yeah, I think that would probably be a very good idea. Councillor Alexander, did you just indicate?
I will join debate if I may.
You may, yes, please go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Well, thank you very much indeed. Yes, I've listened intently to what has been said today, and I've listened to the gentleman from the general public speaking, and it's a very difficult and intricate balance that we find ourselves in yet once again, because we're balancing what has been there for so many hundreds and thousands of years compared to where we're moving now for the genuine need for more building, and we have no control over that. That is designed by the government, and the government has said that we need more housing, and housing is what we're going to have to live with. But if we're going to have to live with this, then we need to get it right, and we need to balance that. And the balance of probabilities are that mistakes will be made along the way in delivering the final application. We're here on to look at the principle of development, plus we're here to debate the access. The principle is that there's nothing wrong with it, and it can't be argued with. It's okay. It's a good application. But it's the impact that's bothering me around the application, the village, and the way the impact on the village will take place. Maybe dropping these arms at the gates will cause some disruption, but those arms are up most times, and the problem of that parking is there all the time. So I think in the future that will have to be debated, and a solution will have to be found. A parcel of land may be turned into a car park, whether we like these things or not. That's not for us. So with that in mind, I'm going to look at this, if I may, Chair. I'm going to look at this, and based on what is in front of us and what we're here to debate tonight, I'm going to propose that we accept this. So I pass the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. So we're now in debate. Any further comments on this application? We have a proposal of acceptance from Councillor Alexander. Councillor Goldman?
I would second Councillor Alexander's.
You're seconding the proposal?
Yeah.
So the proposal is for as the conditions in our papers plus the update sheet. It's important that it's also included, the update sheet, and also that the reserve matters will come back to committee. So if I could have a show of hands for approval for this application. That is unanimous. Thank you, members. So we'll now have a 10-minute break until the next item. Thank you. Welcome back to Tendring District Council's Planning Committee on Tuesday, the 14th of April. So we shall carry on now with our agenda, and I have an apology to make to you all. I missed item 4 on the agenda, so we'll just backtrack to item 4, which is questions on notice pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 38. Are there any questions, Bethany?
Thank you, Chair. There are no questions.
There are no questions, right. So we shall now carry on item 6 on the agenda. Is A2 25/0139/5/full, which is Oak Lodge, Hall Road, Great Bromley. And to present this item, the officer is Charlotte Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. This application is for a change of use from a residential dwelling to a residential children's home. And the application is before members of the committee due to a call-in request from Councillor Scott. So the site is located to the southern side of Hall Road within the development boundary of Great Bromley. Residential properties are located immediately to the southeast. To the west is an agricultural field and public right-of-way. And to the north is St George's Church, a Grade 1 listed building. So that's over here. An aerial image of the site outlined in red here. And some site photos. So this mature oak shown to the front of the site does benefit from a tree preservation order. And the grassed area to the front is protected open space. And here's a view where you can see the Grade 1 listed church there. So the only external change proposed is the extended area of the hard standing to the front. This is needed to accommodate additional parking. This change is not considered materially harmful to the area's character and appearance. It's also important to note that these works could be carried out under permitted development rights without the need of planning permission. The works do encroach upon the area of safeguarded open space. While this may be an area that represents visual amenity, it is private land and therefore does not serve the community. The change in visual appearance and character of the area are deemed very minor, and the proposal has been deemed consistent with policy HP4 as set out within the officer's report. In line with the Essex parking standards, 4 parking spaces are required, which can be accommodated within the front of the site here. So there are no external changes proposed to the main property. And the proposed floor plans show a 5-bedroom dwelling. And then if I just go back to the block plan quickly. It is important to note there is a potential fallback position for this application. There have been similar applications within the district and across the country which have been granted lawful development certificates, which have confirmed that the proposed change of use from a C3 dwelling to a small C2 residential care home does not require planning permission. In this case, the proposal will accommodate 3 children with up to 3 members of staff. It is considered that there is little material change in planning permission may therefore not be required. This is because the development is essentially similar to a larger family and therefore the associated activity around the site also is considered to be comparable. It's for these reasons that officers are recommending the case for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Charlotte. Speakers for this item. First of all, we have the applicant, Mr. Samuel Connor. Mr. Connor, if you'd like to take a seat, and when you're ready, if you push the button in the middle and the red light will come on, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Sam Connor and I am a director of Shalimar Children. We operate Ofsted regulated children's homes across Essex, supporting children who've experienced trauma and need stability, care and a safe place to live. Our application is for a small home for up to 3 children, supported by consistent carers in a calm and structured environment. This is a therapeutic home with attachment-focused guided care, not a high-risk setting. I'm proud to say I'm proud to play my small part in helping children who have had very difficult starts in life, giving them a home where they can feel safe and cared for, and we wish to continue that sadly needed work. A key part of our approach is matching. We assess every child before placement and would not place a child here if the location was not suitable. Our priority is to ensure the home is safe and appropriate. Day to day, the home operates very similar to a normal household. There are typically 2 carers present, creating a small, stable, homely environment, much like a family unit. Children attend education and follow normal routines, with evenings focused on meals and home life. We make every effort for the home to feel as close to a normal family environment as possible, as this is what helps children feel safe. In terms of noise and activity, this is no different to a typical family home. There may be fun and games in the garden, but no more than you'd expect from any other family. The home is run by highly trained staff with clear managerial structures at all times. I understand concerns have been raised around traffic and parking. However, there is no objection from the Highways Authority, and vehicle management is limited and well managed. In terms of character, there is no significant external changes. The property remains a home with no commercial appearance or impact on the street. This application is recommended for approval with no objections from Highways, Environmental Protection or other statutory consultees. So ultimately, this is a small, well-managed home where vulnerable children can feel safe and begin to thrive. I respectfully ask that you support the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Our next speaker is a member of the public speaking against the application, Mr. Scott Tucker. Mr. Tucker, if you'd like to take a seat, and when you're ready, push the button in the middle, and when the red light comes on, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, councillors. I'm the direct neighbour to Oak Lodge, and myself, my family and all of my neighbours have very serious concerns the impact of approving this application will have. I highlight the main concerns we feel have not been fully considered by this application. The number of vehicle spaces applied for is not clear. In some documents it states 7 in total, in others it states 6. Neither garage width meets the minimum size requirements required by the highways and are not practical for parking. Parking access to the garage nearest to the property is prevented by the drain pipe and disabled sloped access. Parking a second car in front of this garage space would block access to the main entrance of the property, and the car would sit across the disabled access. So in reality, and over time, these spaces will not be used as suggested. And how often will 2 garage spaces actually be used when vehicles are being moved around regularly on a daily basis? The twice daily changeover of staff and the number of regular visitors and services to and from the property will create constant vehicle movements and an increase in noise and disturbance. This is heightened by the fact parking relies solely on tandem parking, which requires the cars to be moved regularly. This would also cause congestion and overflow onto the surrounding areas. There is not enough manoeuvring space to allow for all cars to enter and leave in a forward gear. The entrance to the property's driveway is directly in front of my living room window, so every vehicle arriving and leaving, turning and moving will be visually disturbing and impact the most used room in our house. This will be increased significantly in winter months when vehicle lights will shine directly through our windows. The number of cars parking at the front of the house will harm the visual character of the property. This can be seen at other residential turned commercial children's homes in the local area. Shalimar Homes addresses these issues and others by stating the property will be no different to that of a 5-bed family home. This is not true. The number of staff changeovers twice daily, 7 days a week, additional visitors, family members, therapists, social workers, medical practitioners, educational workers, they've all been massively underestimated and understated. A residential family home does not require commercial waste bins and collections, and for the past 30 years this property has not required 6 or 7 parking spaces and additional hard standing. So this application cannot be justified and compared to a 5-bed family home. Finally, access to the property from the main road is via a privately owned driveway, with access only granted to residential dwellings. The vehicles will have no right to use the road, and this will ultimately lead to parking on the main highway and further overspill into the village. These are just a few of the points we feel most strongly about and have the time to mention, and I respectfully ask you to carefully consider the impact this will have before making your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. And our next speaker is from Great Bromley Parish Council, the Vice Chairman, Councillor Andrew Fairley. Councillor Fairley, if you'd like to take a seat. When you're ready, if you push the button in the middle, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm Andrew Fairley. I'm Vice Chair of the Great Bromley Parish Council. I would firstly like to thank the committee for taking the time to come and visit the site in Great Bromley, where I have lived for nearly 60 years, and appreciate the setting of this property, Oak Lodge, with its surroundings. There are 2 covenants associated with this property, but one with one common theme or thread. The property can only be used for one private dwelling. The key word is private. With this, sorry, I lost my line there. And this is for the change of use to a business. This one of the attractions for moving to one of these aspirational properties, as you have seen for yourselves. The grass in front of the property and the others in the close is protected open space, so cannot be destroyed for parking to appease the requirements of highways parking requirement associated with this application, which would conflict with policy HP4. On your site visit, you will have noticed that there were no cars parked on the service road, which is privately owned, and residents keep their cars on their own respective drives. With this in mind, do you really think Oak Lodge can accommodate 6 cars, a motorcycle space with a turning circle without infringing on the protected open space and still operate within its own curtilage? For your information, the car park across the road is also privately owned and maintained. This application will have large impact on the residents in the surrounding area, with round-the-clock shift changes, visiting professionals 7 days a week, hardly a residential acceptable activity. These children will have come from a disruptive environment miles away and will not be aware of what is considered socially acceptable in this location, making a significant detrimental impact on the local residents freely enjoying their own properties, open space, which is contrary to planning policy LP10. To sum up, this proposal fails to comply with key requirements relating to the protection of safeguarded open space, HP4, adequate car parking and highway safety, LP10, protection of village character and residential amenity, LP10, HP4. For these reasons, the Parish Council respectfully requests that the application be refused. Thank you for your time and allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Fairley. Our final speaker on this item is the Ward Councillor, Councillor Gary Scott. Councillor Scott, when you're ready, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm speaking against this application, as a lot of the comments from the Parish Council and Mr. Tucker have said. I'm not against applications for care homes, but this application, in my view, will be too much for a very small area where we're going to have increased in traffic movements in terms of staff turning up, shift, medical staff, removing refuge, deliveries of supplies, families, members visiting. If they can't visit there, they can't park there, they would have to park over the road at St George's Church car park, but that's also used regularly by churchgoers. Also, the primary school park there all day. So it's an issue with parking, and that's my main concerns, is the deliveries in terms of people parking there. There isn't enough room. And I think it's in the wrong location for a very small rural settlement, and I'm urge councillors to refuse the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. I'll just ask the officer, Charlotte, do you have anything you want to come back on from the comments of the speakers?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So it's questions now for our officer. So before I go, first of all, to Councillor Alexander, I just want to ask our officer just a quick question. One of our speakers mentioned about covenants. My understanding is that covenants are not a material planning consideration. Could you clarify that, please?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. Just one or two questions. We heard that also on the site visit, incidentally, this point was raised. It's about this, if you have the correct application and license, then planning permission is not required for this particular application. There was no explanation on the day, but rather than yourself, if you could expand on that and please explain how that would work and why we're here looking at this when no planning permission in effect would be required.
So essentially it was just down to the applicant's discretion. They would rather go in for full planning permission rather than for a lawful development. And so that is why the application is before members today. And yeah.
That is it. That's the way it works. Now, could you just expand a little on that?
Let me try to help. In these circumstances, your debate, the debate has been debated on a case law basis, so we've got to bear that in mind. But the debate is, what is the material change? Now, you're looking at a change of use from C3 to C4, which is a change from a standard residential property to a children's home. But it's a degree of how institutionalized, if you could put it that way, or how significant a change to that children's home is considered to be material. Case law unfortunately holds up that in small cases of very minor change, it could be held to be lawful, as in a certificate of lawful use, that there is no significant material change. Whereas if the children's home was a significant home with a lot of children and resources and everything else thrown at it, it is considered to be a material change. In this case, the fallback is argued, or could potentially be argued, that because it is so similar to a 5-bedroom property in the nature of size and scale being proposed, that it could be regarded as non-material. So it's a matter of judgment. Now, they could come back in, if this was refused, they could come back in with a certificate of lawful use that we would have to consider that degree of material change. They've decided not to do that. They've decided to come in with an application for simply the change of use, however, how much of a degree of change of use it is, to be determined on its own merits. There is also another difference between the two. A certificate of lawful use is simply a case of yes or no, is this needing planning, whereas a full application, which is what you've got before you, is also, you're considering its merits, but you also have the opportunity to impose restrictions on that proposal, which you wouldn't have if a development certificate was made instead. And in your papers, we are asking for 2 restrictions, one regarding parking and one regarding the number of residents in the property as well. I will try to be clear if need be, otherwise I'm going to need my help from my colleagues over there. Does that help you?
So, I may not have picked this up correctly. If, let's say, for example's sake, that in this meeting tonight, we decided to go against this application, which this is hypothetically, don't you know? Would it then be possible to revert back to applying for a lawful license on this land, on this building?
If you were to refuse this application on whatever grounds you may debate, and I'm happy to advise you as needed, the choices for the applicant could be to appeal the decision made, for which then obviously a planning inspector would consider the merits of the case again, and that would include any material considerations and any permitted development rights, etc. The other choice they may have or decide, or they could do both, is appeal, and they could submit a fresh application, but this time a lawful development certificate application. So they have many options.
Thank you, Chair. I'll now wait for debate.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Councillor Sudra, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Charlotte, with highways not objecting to this, they would have taken into consideration the amount of activity with cars, etc., to not object. Is that correct?
Yes, so, yeah, highways haven't objected to the application. Sorry, give me 2 seconds, I'll try and find their wording. Yeah, they've said it's not considered the proposal would result in a material change in the character of traffic in the vicinity of the site, and therefore they have no objections. They have suggested some conditions relating to the parking area and the parking space dimensions, which has been included on in the officer's report.
Thank you. And I didn't take notice is the road has it got yellow lines on the outside of the house, or white line where there's no stopping allowed?
Trouble is, I'm looking at Google Maps right now to see where the yellow lines are. I should declare that. Ultimately, there are double yellow lines in places along that road. It's a 30-mile-an-hour road. It is a fairly main road. Essentially, what's the direction of travel here? Hang on, bear with me. Everything effectively, oh God, they got there. Everything east of the access is effectively double yellow lined. But I would also say parking, I think, would be restrictive given the main road nature of the road as well. But you obviously saw that on site.
Yeah, I was hoping that is what I would hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sudra. Thank you, Mr. Pateman-G. I know that there are details sometimes that it's hard to get your head around if you've not got a legal knowledge on planning, but with the lawful use option that the applicant could go to following a refusal would not have any conditions as per.
No, you wouldn't. No. A certificate of lawful use is an exercise of whether or not something requires planning permission or not, essentially, and you can't condition that. It's a simple. It's almost like a question, yes or no. So that's how that stands. I would like to just point out, obviously, what you're doing here is you're debating the merits of this planning application, but you are considering what are the material considerations and considering what weight you're giving to those. What a fallback option may or may be is a material consideration, but I would say you have to understand what weight to give that. As same goes with what is permitted development rights available to this property as it stands. That you have to debate in terms of what weight you give that, and you have to take all of the material considerations as a whole and debate your position at that point.
Thank you very much. So if there are no further questions, we'll go into debate now. Councillor Alexander, did you indicate?
Thank you, Chair. I'd be most interested to hear what my colleagues on the committee have got to say, but there is most certainly a genuine need for this form of small interactive grouping in our society. We heard about tonight about the actual children themselves, because we have no idea of what the age group of the children or any of their personal details, and neither we should have either. But as for saying that we don't know what kind of caliber these children might be, if they have suffered from trauma, maybe we should be looking at the adults, not the children. So with that in mind, Chair, I would like to stop now and listen to the debate from my colleagues, and then I will make my decision.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Further comments, members? Councillor Sudra?
Thank you, Chair. I know of similar types of establishments within my area, and quite honestly, I don't think it's as bad as sometimes you think, that these things will kind of take over. But I would back this. I'm happy to move this.
Thank you, Councillor Sudra. And I have to say, I have to agree with your comments, because I too know of within the Tendring district other children's homes of a similar nature, and I can honestly say that where you have a family home situation with 3 or 4 children, that can be worse sometimes with the comings and goings. So I've experienced both. So I don't actually see a problem with this either. So I'm actually happy to second your proposal, which would be as per in our papers. So there's nothing, I don't think, on the update sheet for that one. No, there wasn't. Any further comments? Councillor Goldman?
Yeah, in respect of the home itself, could we put sort of restrictions on the amount of vehicles at any one time, such as up to, say, a 4-vehicle permit only, instead of 6 or whatever number it's supposed to be?
You could, but I'm going to ask you a question, which is how we would enforce it, or the likelihood of enforcement. We have to understand what, in terms of the tests of conditions, what is reasonable, what is necessary, what is, enforceable. Ultimately, given all other material considerations, in my opinion, I think we would be unreasonable, and I would think it would be quite unenforceable as well on a practical level.
Thank you for that. I just thought it was a suggestion. Hopefully we could have some way of enforcing it, but obviously there isn't going to be a particular way, other than the residents watching over it continuously.
Councillor Goldman, I see your point on that one, because I thought about that as well, about the vehicle movements. But also with guidance from our head of planning, Mr. Pateman G, with regard to how would you enforce it? I mean, you could have 4 vehicles there, a 5th turns up, and then by the time you've phoned whoever to report it, it's gone. So I think that is somewhat unrealistic. Yeah. Any further comments, members? No? Okay. So we have a proposal from Councillor Sudra to approve this application as per our papers, and I have seconded Councillor Sudra's proposal. So could I have a show of hands for approval for this application? And that is unanimous. Thank you, members. Now we'll now move to item 6 on the agenda. Sorry, item 7. which is A326/0075/full, Clacton Leisure Centre, Vista Road, Clacton-on-Sea. And to present this item for us, Charlotte again. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair. This application is seeking planning permission for the construction of a floodlit football foundation play zone. The application is before members tonight as the land is owned by Tendring District Council. So the site location plan here. The application site is Clacton Leisure Centre. The court itself represents an unused tennis court located to the rear of the sports centre. The train track runs immediately to the western boundary, with commercial and residential properties further towards the west. The site is otherwise surrounded by sports courts with residential development further to the south. The site is within the development boundary of Clacton-on-Sea. Here's an aerial image of the site and some site photos showing the unused existing court. This view from the leisure centre there. I believe this is the train track here. And the proposed site layout plan. So the play zone will be fully encapsulated by 3 metre high fencing with 4 metre high goal recess sections to either end. 4 LED floodlights are proposed to each corner of the play zone, each measuring 8 metres in height. There is also a spectator area here, and it also includes ancillary features such as bins and benches. So the number of vinyl signs shown here have already received advert consent under a separate application, and so they aren't for consideration tonight. The proposal is considered to represent a visual enhancement to the currently run-down area. Exciting amongst other sports courts mean the development will integrate with its locality, and it is deemed acceptable in terms of its design. So in terms of residential amenities, the proposal is located an adequate enough distance from residential properties. I'll go back to the site plan. It is positioned within an established sports centre where activity of this nature is commonplace, and as such the development is not considered to generate noise levels greater than those already characteristic of the site. The play zone will be available from 8:30 to 10 PM Monday to Friday and 8:30 till 6 on Saturdays and Sundays. It is considered necessary to restrict the hours of floodlighting between 10 PM and 8 AM in the interest of residential amenities and biodiversity. The proposal is therefore considered acceptable in terms of residential amenities. We've had no objections received from the Highway Authority, and the proposal is therefore recommended for approval.
Thank you, Charlotte. There are no speakers on this item, so we go straight into questions for the officer. Do we have any questions for our officer? Councillor White.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On previous occasions, we've had lots of problems on the main court with the floodlighting, which at times could be seen 1.5 miles away. I just want some assurance that these modern lights are what I would call downloaders, really, rather than floodlighting the whole area. Could Charlotte help us on that? And the other point, it's rather a devious route to get to it from what I take to be a changing room, but I'm not sure quite what that building is. So are we saying that people using it will not use the sports centre to change and the locker room or anything like that? They will have to use this, the single little square room, whatever it is, if it is a changing room. So principally it's a question of lighting and also access once the people have changed.
Thank you. So in terms of the changing room, there isn't one proposed under this application itself. However, there are facilities within the main sports centre, which I believe the users of the sports court would be able to use. And in terms of the lighting, so it's LED floodlighting is proposed to each corner of the play zone. I don't believe there are any changes to the existing floodlights. We haven't received any objections to this, but we have included a condition restricting the hours that they can be used. So they're restricted they can only be used between 8 AM and 10 PM.
So they're LEDs, and presumably they are just down on the pitch rather than generally flooding the area completely.
Yes, I believe you can see it in this elevation here that pointed downwards.
Charlotte, just one quick question. There's nothing on the update sheet, and we've got in our report there was no letters of representation received from any of the neighbours. Is that still the case?
Yes, it
yes.
is.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. Any further questions? Any comments? Do we have a proposal? Oh, Councillor White. Oh, sorry. No, just a moment. Mr. Pateman-G.
I don't normally do this, but I'm going to cut in here and I'm going to make a suggestion. Just going over the floodlighting argument, we should treat this in any other way that it's an application that we are the local planning authority. I appreciate this is land owned by the council, that's the reason it's here. But as much as I have a plan showing me LED lighting downwards, once the lighting is there, if they redirect that lighting, it's not in our control in terms of local planning authority. Can I recommend that we put a standard lighting condition on this application so that we can be assured of the lighting arrangement and it will be maintained thereafter? I'm putting that out there as a suggestion, as an addition, should members debate and wish to approve.
Well, I think that's an excellent idea, Mr. Pateman-G. Councillor White?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it's essential that we add that. Do you remember we had a very similar application at Frinton? Yeah. And the objections there were that the People's Back Gardens would be permanently backlit, and we overcame that by a similar clause as was suggested by the planning manager, and I think we do need to do it, and with that in mind I would be more than happy to propose it.
Thank you, Councillor White. So your proposal is as per our papers plus the extra condition as was stated by Mr. Pateman-G. Councillor Goldman?
Yes, I would like to second Councillor White's.
Seconded by Councillor Goldman. Okay. Councillor Alexander, did you have any comments?
I was going to second it, Chair.
Okay, right, okay. So in that case then, we have a proposal, we have a seconder. So could I have a show of hands for approval, please? That is unanimous. Well, we'll have another short break and then we'll be back with item 8. Welcome back to part 3, Tendring District Council's Planning Committee on 14th of April. And we shall continue with item 8, which is A4 26 stroke 00025 stroke FUL. Former public convenience stroke beach patrol unit, existing shelter and small hut building, King's Promenade, Clacton-on-Sea. And we don't have Councillor Alexander with us. He has withdrawn from the committee as he had an interest that he declared earlier on in the meeting on this application. So we'll go over again to our officer, Charlotte, to present this one. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair. So this application seeks permission for the change of use and alterations to the former public convenience and beach patrol facility and shelter to a multi-use micro venue and provision of external seating area, new replacement shutters, cycle parking, refuse storage, repairs to hard landscaping, lighting, external plant and ancillary works. The proposal is before members as the land is owned by Tendring District Council. The full use classes proposed for the multi-use venues are set out within the officer's report under paragraphs 7.7 and 7.8. Members should be made aware of the update sheet. Previously, the recommendation for this proposal stated recommended for approval subject to there being no objections raised from Essex County Council Ecology and/or Natural England. These consultation comments have since been received with no objections raised by either party. Ecology have suggested conditions which have also been included on the update sheet. There is also an amendment to condition 3 following the submission of a schedule of works and agreement from Heritage. So the application site is within the settlement development boundary of Clacton-on-Sea. The site is located to the west of the Martello Lounge, here, and it's to the south of the Sunken Rose Garden. The site falls within the Clacton Seafront Conservation Area. The application site is largely within flood zone 1, which is the lowest risk, with a small element falling within flood zone 2, which is medium risk. So here's an aerial image of the site. We see the pier down here, Martello Lounge, the beach, and the conservation area gardens. Site photos of the current beach patrol building. Some more of the beach patrol, the view from Martello Lounge. This is the first floor of the beach patrol building. This is the store building and the existing covered shelter. So the proposal comprises from those 3 buildings, the two bay single-storey pitch roof shelter, the single-storey store building and the beach patrol unit. With the exemption of the beach patrol, these buildings are currently vacant. So sorry, that's just the ground floor level which is being used as beach patrol. The first floor element is vacant. So with regards to the beach patrol building, the ground floor will be retained and used for beach patrol services, with the first floor seeking the change of use to a multi-use micro venue. Full details of the proposed use are set out within paragraph number 7.7 in the officer's report. The proposed improvements to the building comprise the replacement of metal shutters at ground floor level, with openings made full height and ramps provided to allow beach patrol vehicular access. The high level windows at first floor level will be retained with new large windows inserted below. The ground floor plan for the beach patrol, retaining the beach patrol services, and the first floor proposed floor plan with the seating areas to either side here. So for the covered shelter, the details of the proposed change of use are again listed in the officer's report under paragraph number 7.8. Externally, the covered shelter would benefit from new windows and metal shutters to the openings, the rendering redecorated and the roof membrane repaired as necessary. And for the store building, this will benefit from external alterations and improvements to the building to provide a cycle and refuse store. Collectively, the works will enhance the site's overall appearance. Essex County Council's Heritage team have raised no objection to the proposal, subject to conditions which have been included in the event of an approval, and therefore the proposal is deemed acceptable in terms of design and visual amenity. The site is located a significant distance from any residential properties to prevent harm to residential amenity from the proposed range of uses. There are other restaurants and commercial units nearby. The proposal is therefore considered unlikely to cause harm to any neighbouring amenities. The application site is mostly located in flood zone 1, with a very small part in front of the Beach Patrol building, lying within flood zone 2. The use of the ground floor of this building is unchanged and will remain as water compatible. The other proposed uses are classed as more vulnerable, but these all lie within flood zone 1 at the lower risk of flooding. No objections have been received from Essex County Council, Sustainable Drainage, Heritage, Ecology or Highways, and in the absence of any material harm, the proposal is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Charlotte. Okay, now we have 3 speakers for this item. First of all, the applicant, Mr. Lee Healy. If you'd like to take a seat, please, Mr. Healy. And when you push the red button, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Lee Healy, Deputy Chief Exec of Tendring District Council. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to present this planning application to the committee. The Seafront Microvenue forms part of the wider suite of projects that Tendring District Council is delivering through the Community Regeneration Partnership, funding which has been awarded by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. And these projects are together focused on the regeneration of Clacton-on-Sea and Jaywick through a range of targeted interventions. And this site is an important element of the regeneration now underway in Clacton. And it's going to bring long disused assets back into use. As part of the regeneration process, we've consulted with local residents, internal stakeholders and elected members on the development and its design. And the feedback has been received and incorporated into the proposals. And the local community has shown considerable interest and enthusiasm in the proposal. The proposals have been set out to the committee with the pictures that we've seen, and they all comprise essential and sympathetic repairs to both the cupboard, shelter, the hut, and to the former public conveniences and the Beach Patrol centre. And what's going to happen is the cupboard, shelter and hut will retain their mock Tudor character alongside modern interventions that will enable a new venue to come forward in 2027. And the refurbishment of the old toilets fit with the coastal setting and the modernist aesthetic next to the Martello Lounge. The community safety aspects are particularly important. The area has experienced ongoing issues with antisocial behaviour, so the scheme incorporates appropriate security measures which have been as a result of engagement with Essex Police, who have advised that positively activating the site will be one of the most effective ways to help reduce community safety issues. So in summary, the proposal will see the reuse and refurbishment of 3 buildings, which sit in a prominent seafront position. They will support regeneration in Clacton, and they will enable a new venue well designed to come forward for the local area and support the ongoing use of the Beach Patrol facility. We hope that you will support this application and allow this project to take a significant step forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Healy. And our next speaker is one of the ward members, which Councillor Chris Griffiths. Councillor Griffiths, if you'd like to take your seat, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is one of the first times I've actually come along to this planning committee in support of an application. So so this is good. Well, the first thing I'd like to say is I find this incredibly encouraging and exciting, the fact that we're taking a rather dilapidated area of Clacton and putting it back into use and using it for the good of the community. I like the idea of the overall design. I like the idea of putting our old children's storage area in the middle promenade back into use. And I like the idea of trying to sort of encourage businesses and the local community to use this very underutilised and derelict space. All in all, I think this is an excellent concept, it's an excellent design, and I'm totally in favour of the whole project. The only concerns that I do have actually lie in relation to your local plan policy SPL3, which states that all new developments should make a positive contribution to the quality of local environment, incorporating, amongst other things, measures to minimise opportunities for crime and antisocial disorder or behaviour. We've heard from Lee how there's antisocial behaviour in the area, and one of our main concerns is the lack of lighting, especially on that middle promenade, which covers the first floor beach patrol area and the covered shelter. In between the promenade, there's absolutely no lighting, which creates an incredibly dark space. Bearing in mind that access to this area is either via one set of stairs that goes via the local pub, another set of stairs that goes down the side of the building, or a slope. It's our concern that if you wish to use this building in November or December, sort of after 5 o'clock at night, a very, very darkly, badly lit area is not really helping either stop antisocial behaviour or make local residents feel safe. So in general, I would say that although I'm quite supportive, I would urge this committee to look very, very carefully at the lighting issue around these structures to see what we can do to enhance this project to make it safe for all concerns. I would add that I do accept that as this is external, lighting usually isn't a planning committee as it's outside of the two development areas, but as TDC own the area around it, perhaps it's something we could look at. On that note, I'd like to thank you all for allowing me to come along and speak on this, and I hope you'll look at my comments favourably.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. And now we'll bring Councillor Alexander back, who is the other ward councillor for this ward. Welcome back, Councillor Alexander. Yes, if you'd like to take a seat in the hot seat, and you know the drill. From when you push the button, you have 5 minutes, Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee. Well, thank you for allowing me to come here and speak tonight. The reason why the both of us are so keen to see this application fulfilled is as simple as this. It will save lives. It will give high visual presence to people, reassuring them that our beaches in Tendring are safe. And of course, the other thing is that the fact that we'll be there, that's the most important thing, where some authorities are not there. What I'm asking you tonight, and this is basically asking you a favour, I suppose, what I'd like to see you to do is, I can't do it from here, but you can, is to put a condition on that creates a light survey as the area is very dark, especially in the winter months. locals won't walk down there. It's too dangerous, and I myself am wary of walking down there even with a torch. And then to install lighting, suitable lighting, that will be able to enhance what we're already looking at. We're in favour of it immensely. That's why I'm sitting here. That's why I'm talking to you tonight from here. Okay, so that's basically all I wanted to say, is that if I was sitting where you are, I would bring a condition, if I may, and that condition would say I would have a light survey, and also to have the correct lighting installed. At the levelling up, that this area was discussed, and they agreed that there was a serious problem with the lighting system there. So that's why I'm here, and thank you very much indeed. Right. Do I press that little button there?
You do. Thank you, Councillor Alexander. And yes, you have to leave again now, I'm afraid. Yes. I'm just going to go to Charlotte now with the comments from the speakers. Is there anything that you'd like to address?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, so questions. Councillor Goldman.
Yeah, thank you for all the speakers tonight. I think they've put it across quite well. There's one other thing I would like to mention on this, and that's in particular what I picked up on is that no public convenience. Could there be a provision for that anywhere? Because I noticed you've got a disabled one, which is fine. Yeah, but that needs a code, doesn't it, to use? I think it's only disabled people can use it. But no actual public convenience, because you've got the beach in front of you, but they've got nowhere to go.
Yep, thank you. So the reason it's been deemed acceptable to get rid of the existing conveniences there is there are public conveniences adjacent to the Martello Lounge, roughly here. So as well as the disabled toilets to the ground floor of the Beach Patrol unit, there are some within a walking distance of the site. Which is deemed to be enough in this case.
So would that be the public convenience? Well, are they public conveniences on the pier?
No, I believe they are just adjacent to the Martello Lounge. So if you can see my cursor, I think they are literally just in sort of this area around about here. There's some public conveniences there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. It's okay if that's adequate. Is it? Do you find that it's adequate? That these.
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Thank you.
The Goldman. Something that was raised by the two ward members was the lighting in the area. I mean, I know the area, but I don't know it that well because I don't live in Clacton. But is that something that's been the main cause of this antisocial behaviour because it's all dark and horrible? And is this lighting concern of theirs something that can be, Mr. Pateman G?
So there's a couple of thoughts here. The one thought is if you actually add, I'll come to the technical planning thing in a moment, but just put this thought out there. Additional lighting does not necessarily mean it solves a problem. It possibly anticipates the problem, can't say that word, more on the basis that you are encouraging gatherings to take place under that lighting. So there is, and I do understand there was discussions with the Designing Out Crime officer in respect of not encouraging further lighting. There is some lighting in respect of this proposal in terms of downlighters with regard to the building itself, but there is not a proposal before you to consider in respect of lighting. So if members were minded to try and add lighting in this case, you're actually trying to add something to the proposal before you, which is not before you.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Pateman G. I wasn't really sure exactly what they were wanting, but it was something that both the speakers raised. So you've clarified the situation with that, Councillor White.
Thank you, Chairman. Talking of lighting, but also I'm looking in particular at the single-storey shelter with its possible change of use. Now, if we are trying to push that as a public hall or a museum or a community hall, and it's open to what we do with it, it's already hasn't got any car parking space, but I think if it was well lit, it would be a definite improvement on the use of that single-storey shelter. It's obviously been used, and that's the reason that it's all boarded up for all sorts of goings on in the dark previously, and I think that I accept everything John has said, that if you brought lights in it might encourage more, but I think the idea of having more lights is definitely an improvement as such, especially as if we want to use that single-storey shelter, and I well support it, with all these other multiple uses. So I think we ought to seriously looking at putting some form of lighting down that, in that, certainly on that slope in particular.
Thank you, Councillor White. Mr. Pateman G.
In respect to that particular building, obviously this proposal is to rejuvenise its use as a currently unused building that is in a state of neglect. Ultimately, the activity that this proposal proposes during its activity hours will, I would suggest, put people off from antisocial behaviour and so on. I would imagine that the asset holder for this particular venue would be considering security as part of their considerations as well. Those are matters of perhaps a little bit beyond planning in the context, but I would imagine they're listening to this conversation. You may wish to maybe consider informative in respect of encouragement of a review of any lighting requirements and security requirements to be undertaken, but I would say that you may be stretching it a little far to be adding specific lighting proposals to the roadway, the access ways around this locality beyond the proposal itself.
Thank you, Mr. Pateman G. A review of the lighting as an informative, I believe, would be appropriate. I do. But obviously, what colleagues think, I don't know. Councillor Goldman?
Yeah, in respect of the lighting and not having lighting and making it safer, but for the people that use it, walking down those slopes in the dark, I would imagine it'd be quite worrying. I don't know if you've actually seen the slope; they're quite extreme. Those slopes are very extreme. You've got one set of stairs coming down, but in the dark, it's quite daunting, or it can be. Yeah, and I just think that it's got to be worth having a lighting survey of some point there.
So, if I may, are we talking about areas outside the red line plan? Because if you've got that before us, which specific path are we referring to? Because unfortunately, right. Well, the majority of that is outside of the red line plan, so it's not part of the application before me. It's not, but it is also a current public right of way and a current situation that's been there for some time. The difficulty here is that you're, I would suggest, trying to mitigate a burden that is already existing as opposed to dealing with the burden that is proposed.
Thank you.
Well, I'm quite happy to go with your suggestion, Mr. Pateman G, was that within the red line, the application site, to review, an informative to review the lighting. I'm quite happy with that. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm more than happy to support and propose this application with the informative as per our update papers and update sheet. Is there anything on the update sheet? No. Oh, there is. Yes. Yes, there is. Yes. So I'm willing to propose as per our papers and the update sheet and the informative.
Yeah, if I could clarify, Chair, for you, the informative would perhaps be on the lines of, for the applicant to consider any further lighting requirements for the development and immediate area to be considered alongside this proposal.
Yes, I accept that. That's absolutely fine. Councillor Goldman?
Yeah, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Goldman. Councillor Sudra?
Thanks, Chair. I have a question, and we're talking about the slopes, etc., and disability access. Can officers tell me, will there be any enhancements to make it a better journey for wheelchair users, etc.? It's very difficult at the moment. I've wheelchaired my mother-in-law down and up, and the only other way to get onto the promenade is up Pier Gap, or you have to go all the way down to Martello and wheel them around. So can officers tell me, will there be any enhancements in that area? By the way, I'm very excited, and I'm in favour of the enthusiasm. It's nice to see this area is going to be used.
So there are changes proposed to the steps, the handrails and the hard surfacing of the area, but nothing major to the actual slopes themselves, if that makes sense.
Can officers look at that again? Maybe some things can be changed, or I don't know. Maybe.
This is where you have a difficulty in that this is a council development, so I appreciate you may wish to push the enhancement side of that further. In a planning sense, I'm trying to keep us to the core of the proposal. I would imagine they are listening. If we maybe add that to the we wish to encourage informative, that might be the best way to tackle it on this occasion. I appreciate the sentiment. Any obviously building works here would also need to correspond with building regulations in respect of access as well, but that doesn't necessarily mean you alter the existing slopes. That is an existing position.
I would be very happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sudra. Right, okay, so we have a proposal which was made by me as per the conditions in our papers and the update sheet and the informative. Seconded by Councillor Goldman. So could I have a show of hands, please, to approve this application? So that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Councillor Alexander is due to come back in. Oh, right, there he is. Right, okay, so we shall continue now with the next and final item on the agenda, which is A525/01832/out, which is 59 Harwich Road, Lawford. And to present this item for us, our officer again, Charlotte. Over to you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is seeking outline permission with all matters reserved for the erection of one dwelling. The application is before members as it represents a departure from the local plan. The application site is located towards the north of Harwich Road. It currently serves the garden area of number 59. The proposal will form a linear form of development infilling between numbers 58 and 59. The site is located outside of the development boundary. Members will be aware that the council's housing policies are now out of date and therefore the tilted balance is engaged. The proposal has been assessed against the three objectives of sustainable development. Economically, it would provide jobs throughout the construction phase and local spending from future residents. Socially, it would contribute to the housing supply at a time when the 5-year supply cannot be demonstrated, and it is sustainably located with a bus stop approximately 200 metres from the site, providing links to local services and the train station. Environmentally, the dwelling would be energy efficient, including biodiversity enhancement and RAMS contribution, which has already been secured. The proposal therefore meets the three strands of sustainability and the principle of development is accepted. The site lies within the Dedham Vale National Landscape, although it is located at the edge of the designation with the land on the opposite side of the road falling outside of it. The National Landscape team have been consulted, and while they acknowledge the loss of undeveloped parcel of land, they note the site is tightly contained between existing development and would not appear out of place in this context. They have recommended replacement native planting, sensitive boundary treatments and careful choice of materials, control of lighting and high quality design approach, but have raised no objection. As landscaping and appearance are reserved matters, these details will be fully assessed at that stage. Conditions have already been imposed, removing the permitted development rights for fencing, boundary treatments and external lighting to protect the tranquility and wildlife. With these safeguards in place, it is considered that the proposal, taken as a whole, would conserve and enhance the natural beauty of the national landscape. So here's an aerial image of the site and the site photos and the views from inside the site. There's vegetation along the front boundary here, and more views of the front boundary vegetation here. And this is the views looking outwards, so away from the existing residential developments, and this is looking towards it. So the block plan is for illustrative purposes only. It does show the site is able to accommodate for a proposed dwelling. The accompanying planning statement suggests the proposal would reflect the character of nearby development along Harwich Road, with the site effectively serving as an infill development between the existing form. Detailed design considerations will be fully assessed at the reserved matters stage. In terms of residential amenities, the distance between the plots are considered acceptable, and the full assessment will be undertaken at the reserved matters stage. Although access is a reserved matter, the accompanying plans demonstrate there is existing access from Harwich Road. The Highway Authority have raised no objections. There are no significant trees with the site itself, with only 2 field maples and a short poor quality conifer hedge along the highway boundary. The field maples will be retained. Landscaping details to enhance the development will be addressed at the reserved matters stage. In the absence of any significant material harm and with the tilted balance engaged, officers are recommended this application for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Charlotte. We have only one speaker for this item, the agent, Beth Deacon-Bates. Ms. Deacon-Bates, if you'd like to take a seat, and when you're ready, push the button in the middle, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of the applicant as their agent. Quite simply, this is an application for a single dwelling in a sustainable location. All the matters are reserved, so it is only the principle we are here to establish. With a shortfall in housing and an out-of-date local plan, this dwelling should be considered against the tilted balance. As stated, this site is sustainable, with a wide variety of bus routes available via the adjacent bus stop. In addition, plenty of services are walkable or cyclable along the road, including a train station. Therefore, we would welcome a positive decision for an appropriate infill development that has no objections from statutory consultees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deacon Bates. Sorry, Miss Deacon Bates. It's been a long day. Charlotte, is there anything you'd like to come back on?
No, thank you, Chair.
Questions for our officer? Members? Councillor White.
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say that I do agree with our landscape officer on this occasion. The best part seems to be protected, if I see it correctly. We've got the two, now I think they're aces, that we saw in the highway, and they are being protected. And a large number of dead conifers that we saw as well, they could easily come out. The only little slight thing I worried about is the line of sight we've got, and I imagined standing in the entrance, those beautiful trees, you can see below them, but there's nothing I think we can do to say that they've got to be kept cut so that you can see underneath them, because they do definitely obscure. If they went down to ground level, they would obscure that long sight line. But I don't know whether the officer can add anything on that subject.
Actually, you can. In the context of this, ultimately, landscaping and access are a reserved matter. So I wouldn't say we can do that now, but you can deal with that on the reserved matter stage. Visibility displays that are part of a scheme doesn't necessarily mean you only restrict the ground height to a certain height. There are conditions that can be worded such that you consider overhang as well. They don't come up that often, I admit, but that is not to say it can't be done. So that is a consideration that I would say is a reserved matter that can be reserved happily for consideration at that time. Because of course it depends on the specific understanding of the layout of the placement of the access as well. So I would say that you can comfortably not consider that at this moment in time, with the understanding that that can be pulled forward as a reserved matter issue that can comfortably be considered as far as the access, layout and landscaping elements of the reserved matters.
Thank you very much. That's exactly what I was really looking for. And that leads me to ask the question, as we did before, will this application come back to us as one of those of reserved matters?
Not automatically, no. But that's at your discretion as a committee, potentially. But if you want, that's something you need to debate.
Thank you. In view of the fact that we might like to consider this, then I would suggest that we do ask for it to come back under reserved matters. Thank you, Jim.
When we were on the site visit and we walked a bit further on to the next property to have a look at the entrance there and have a look at the visibility along that stretch of the road, it was mentioned whilst we were there with our officer Mrs. Lang regarding the speed of the traffic on that road, which was 60 miles an hour. And okay, you know, it's safety again, isn't it? But that would be something for perhaps a local highways panel to a submission for local members to put that in to reduce the speed along there. But I couldn't. Other than that, though, I would actually support this application. So when it comes to debate, Councillor Alexander.
Chair, the similarity between what we looked at of 59 and many other houses down there, they're all emerging onto a road with a 60-mile-an-hour limit. How many accidents are there? If you live in a more contentious area, you take your time. Well, you should do if you've got any sense. You don't pull out and take reckless decisions. You learn how to use the road. And it's like everything else. The splay on this is enormous. It's a very big splay, so it has a lot to go for it. If you're looking for a proposal on this, I think I'd be quite happy to propose it.
Well, thank you, Councillor Alexander. Also, would that include the the reserve matters return to committee?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's quite important. Yeah.
Thank
so
you,
just
Councillor Alexander.
to make sure. Sorry, Chair.
No, that's fine.
Just to make sure that we know what we're doing it for, what we're voting for or we're looking at. Maybe you could explain that, because just to make sure we know what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Any further comments or questions? So we have a proposal from Councillor Alexander to propose his proposed acceptance of this application as per the conditions in our paperwork. And if there is anything on the update sheet, there is nothing on the update sheet. Plus the return for the reserve matters to the planning committee. So that's the proposal from Councillor Alexander. So I'll be looking for a seconder. Councillor Goldman.
Yeah, I'm willing to second that.
Thank you very much. So we have a proposer, we have a seconder. Could I have a show of hands for approval for this application? That is unanimous. Thank you, members. That just leaves me to tell you the date of the next planning committee meeting is on Tuesday,